Welcome, friends. This is Yvonne Davis, your traveling warrior astrologer.
I'm still doing my New Year's special on readings for $99. If you're interested, go ahead and check out the link below, and that will take you to the page where you can order a reading. You can order multiple readings if you want to spread them out over the year or give them as gifts. It's totally fine with me. Also, I'm hoping to get a few more students for the Atomic Habits workshop, and there's a link below. And if I can get like 2 or 3 more students, then we can start next week, and that would be great. I'm also offering my Astrology Basics workshop. These are both for 4-week workshops, and you can check out the link below for that as well. And that also has a weekly Zoom meeting, so I hope that you will sign up this week and we can get started right away. Finally, I'm also doing a Zoom meeting with my patrons on Friday evening. So if you're interested, come on over and join us. It's only $5 a month. This new moon is in Aquarius at 1 degrees of Aquarius. And a lot of the lunations from here on out, the new moons, are going to be in very early degrees. The only really unique lunation will be the total new moon eclipse at 29 degrees of Aries. And that comes around April 21st-ish. We're going to be having these new moons in early degrees, which I think is important because early degrees embed that energy of something new, something beginning, which new moons always do. So a new moon is really good for starting something new, for initiating something new. So you always want to think about that if you are planning something and if you want to work with the phases of the moon. Then starting something, initiating something, putting something out into the world, clicking send, hitting the red button, whatever it is a good thing to do at a new moon or any time during that 2 weeks from the new moon to the full moon. So this one's a little interesting because it is actually conjunct Pluto. So it's bringing in that Plutonic energy. Pluto is the god of wealth and power. So this is really about you as an individual thinking about what could empower you. Like, what is something new you can do that will empower you, especially if you think about where this is landing in your chart, like what area of your chart is this impacting. That doesn't necessarily mean it has to be in that area, because what I've learned in astrology over time is that a lot of times you will see an event that is specific to the area of life where the new moon is showing up in your chart, but sometimes it diffuses throughout your chart. And so I think it's sometimes easier just to think of it in terms of a new beginning. And with its conjunction to Pluto, I would say a new beginning that will help you to become empowered, will help you to access your power and your wealth. Now, wealth can actually mean money or anything else that we normally think of as wealth. With Pluto and these energies, because they're very spiritual and archetypal and psychological, a lot of times you need to think of wealth in the broader sense. Like, for example, power and wealth might be something like being free to follow your heart, like really, truly following your passion, because Pluto is also the planet of intensity. And so it doesn't like to be on the fence. It likes to commit to something that it feels like almost obsessed with. So in a way, you might actually find yourself getting a lot of clarity about something that you're obsessed with. I'm putting that in air quotes. Because, different people have different ways of defining that word. The way I'm defining it here is to say something you're really passionate about, that you've been passionate about for a long, long time. So you may not think of yourself as being obsessed, but in a way you are, because it's something that has been a part of you for, in some ways, as long as you can remember, So depending on how old you are, that might have been something that goes way back to when you were a child or just younger, maybe in your 20s or something, but something that's been with you for a really long time, that's a part of you that you're passionate about. And so that's what Pluto means when we use those kinds of words like wealth, power, passion, commitment, intensity, obsession. It just means something that's been a part of you for as long as you can remember. It's like you couldn't imagine cutting that out of yourself. It would be like part of you dying. And so this new moon conjunct Pluto is really about reconnecting with that part of yourself. And I think that maybe you have been, because Mars was retrograde for 8 weeks. Mars came into Gemini. So you can also think about where Gemini is in your chart, because it may have activated that part of your life. And you need to look at both your ascendant and your sun sign. And so it's retrograde in Gemini. It's been making you think, more deeply about your life, because Mars is your warrior energy. It's the planet that gives you energy to take action. So basically anything, especially like with the Pluto and the Mars energy, because Pluto is the higher octave of Mars. So this very passionate energy to get things done, to make things happen. So with Pluto and Gemini, you've been thinking about that. Where do you want to put your energy? What matters to you? What do you want to commit to that you will take action and do? And so we've had a lot of time to think about that, because Mars came into this area of the chart in August, and then it went retrograde around Halloween, and then it stationed direct on January 12th. And so it's still in Gemini. It's still 8 degrees of Gemini, and it won't leave Gemini until late March. So that is a ton of time to have Mars in that area of your chart and in that area of your life, causing you to think about, what do you really want to commit yourself to, that you're willing to, where you're willing to take action. And it's making a quincunx to Mercury, which was also retrograde. So it's in Capricorn. So again, you want to look at, where is that in your chart from both your ascendant and your sun sign, and see if there is actually some kind of connection between the two. Like, as my example, I have Capricorn as my 7th house from my ascendant, and I have Mars as my 7th house from my sun. So whether I'm looking at it from the ascendant or the sun, the 7th house was being activated. And so I had to rethink relationships, how I relate to people. But it wasn't all about relationships. A lot of it was just about what matters to me in this world. What am I willing to commit myself to? My energy, my Mars energy, my Pluto energy. And so that's just an example from my life. But I suspect that you've been thinking deeply about something too. I mean, it's hard to imagine that anyone could go with this really long-term Mars in Gemini, 8 weeks retrograde, and then at the tail of that, Mercury retrograde, which is also now direct. So we have all this energy moving forward now, forward and outward into the world. So we're ready to take action. So I'm calling this chart All Systems Go, because virtually all of the planets are direct now, except Uranus, but it's going to go direct pretty soon too. And then all the planets will be direct for about 3 months. Okay, so the rest of January, all of February, all of March, and most of April, all the planets will be direct. So it's really getting kicked off with this new moon conjunct Pluto. It's like, hey, you've had a lot of time right now, and since the summer, to think deeply about what matters to you. And actually, what's interesting is we also had a Mercury retrograde in early September. So most of September had a Mercury retrograde. So that entire time that Mars has been in Gemini, we've had 2 Mercury retrogrades, and of course the 8 weeks of Mars retrogrades. That's a lot of time to think deeply about stuff. The reason I'm focusing on these 2 is because they're inner planets, which is different from the outer planet retrogrades. We don't really feel the outer planet retrogrades. We may feel them on the day that they change direction or when they change signs, but in general, we really can't feel the difference between an outer planet direct or retrograde. I'm not including Jupiter in that. I think Jupiter acts a little bit more like an inner planet when it's retrograde. We actually can feel that it's not as strong and powerful in terms of helping us get what we want. It's more like, okay, so I helped you a little bit. Now you have to go back and rework things, like maybe you have to revise something you wrote, or go back and study again something that you were good at, but you've kind of gotten rusty, or redo some financing, or go back and rework some relationships, or basically anything that is part of what you're trying to create, that you need to redo something, like re-strengthen something, relearn something, rewrite something, replan something, re-engage something. Because then when you go direct, then Jupiter says, okay, now you're ready. We're going to give you all the goodies. So basically, I'm putting more emphasis on Mars and Mercury retrograde because of the fact that they're inner planets, and we actually feel when they're retrograde. Like, we can tell the difference when those planets are retrograde. If you're paying attention, you can really feel it. But now they're direct. And like I said, everything's going to go direct pretty soon. Once Uranus is direct, then we'll have the three months of everything direct, kicked off with this new moon conjunct Pluto. So you're really thinking about what it is you want in your life, what you're willing to commit yourself to, what actions you're willing to take, and commit with that almost kind of obsession that Pluto has. I think if there's anything that's slightly holding us back, aside from the fact that we're waiting for Uranus to station direct, though, I don't think, well, we may actually notice it. We may notice that things speed up tremendously during those 3 months when everything's direct. But in terms of how we feel personally, other than the speed of our lives, how busy we get, we probably won't notice the difference that much with Uranus stationing direct. But we may notice the fact that Venus is in a conjunction to Saturn at the time of this new moon. And so whenever a planet is in a major aspect to Saturn, like a conjunction, opposition, or square, we do actually feel it. We feel like it's slowing us down, like there's obstacles coming up, problems that we have to overcome, or even just like lack of energy, like feel sluggish, or maybe our mood gets a little down. Saturn's kind of like a wet blanket. It's like it can be a wet blanket on our mood, it can be a wet blanket on our energy, and it can also stall things if we're trying to make progress. Like, for example, if you're trying to buy a car, or if you're trying to get some documents that you need for an application, or maybe you're trying to refinance a loan or get a loan, or any kind of application or action that you're trying to take because you want to succeed, because you've got the Venus, which is the things that matter to you, and then you've got Saturn. Saturn does want to succeed, but Saturn always makes you work for it. So Saturn always puts up these obstacles and roadblocks and makes you jump through hoops, and you may get down because you may think, oh, when is this ever going to work out? Maybe it's not going to work out, and I feel so tired. I don't know what to do. I'm starting to have doubts, and it's really that wet blanket. The good news is that it will pass, because once Venus gets past her conjunction to Saturn and starts to move toward those end degrees of Aquarius, you will actually feel it lightning in all ways. Yes. And you'll feel it like emotionally, you'll feel it energetically, things will start to flow. Yeah, so it's going to start to feel really good.